why don't we start? I don't normally interview people, so this is new territory for me. But I'm excited to do it with you.
I actually think it'd be better because the questions coming from you, like, I mean, I did an interview the other day for like South America stuff, and like the woman was like holding up like tacos and asking me to say what the word was, and I'm like, they're tacos, and then she's like holding up guacamole, and I'm like, guacamole, like, what do you want from me, like, oh, very good, and then like holding up a different food, and I was like, this is some bullshit.
I feel like that's a trap. They're hoping you say something fucked up or something wrong or like pronounce it wrong, and then the whole world gets upset. Like, I feel like that.
I just think people, I mean, it's fair play to her. She'd gone about preparing all of these dishes at home, but I also just thought, why does this make interesting TV for anyone? Me repeating what words are to see if I'm stupid.
I don't know. I mean, do you know like the whole like ASMR movement, like all those videos online of like people talking?
Crazy.
But like, it's a huge thing. So like, people are into weird shit. Maybe people are really into like you saying guacamole.
Who knows? Who knows? I can't get past that, the thing of people squishing shit.
Oh yeah, that too. They come up on my Instagram feed.
It's crazy.
I guess that's a good lead question. Like, what's the weirdest like Instagram, YouTube trend hole that you've like fallen into? Not necessarily that you like actively are interested in, but somehow found yourself like 2 hours deep into like, what the fuck is this?
The one that always gets me, that I think everybody makes a video on if they make videos, is the putting Mentos in Pepsi or Coke, whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
We all know what happens. We all know what happens, but we have to watch the ending. And then I watched it, and I was like, I've seen this about 50 times. Like, it doesn't change. But it's weird. I mean, finding out what things are interesting when you're stuck inside. I mean, it's been a crazy ride watching how the world reacts to not being, because it's almost like everybody's become a street performer. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like, you know, you see those people on the streets who like busk or have some sort of skill or magic or I don't know, whatever. But it's like the internet's now the place for that, and everybody does it.
How do you feel like the pressure from that, like, because everyone's doing it, do you feel like the need to participate or the need to, is there currency in that? Like, does that keep you relevant? And what are the pressures then that like?
I think artists have had to kind of change a lot to fit in, because, you know, the days of mystery in like the pop world, for example, like it was all fun when like people were a little bit mysterious. You didn't really know much about their life and what was going on. Whereas now, I mean, look, like, you know, we're in my living room right now. Do you know what I mean? And it's for the world to see. And I think that's been the biggest change of these newer platforms that are coming through. I think you have to join in if you want to stay relevant, because, I mean, if you look at someone like Jason Derulo, for example, like Jason Derulo has got something like 19 million people on TikTok now, which is crazy because he literally just started, and like his old songs are recharting due to the TikTok chart. So it's like, you can't just make music and expect it to go well anymore. There's got to be a personality and a story and something else to go along with it. So it's not quite the same, I don't think, anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree. But it's also like, there's so many different avenues and platforms that you have to keep up with. I mean, there's like Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, and, you know, you need to do radio. And it used to just be, you did radio, you did tours, you did late night talk television. And it, you know, there was like sort of 3 things that you sort of did, or 4 things. And now there seems to be a dozen.
It's crazy. I mean, this last promo schedule for me has been one of the craziest. Obviously, having to do it indoors, I had to learn how to do a bunch of different jobs to, like, for the people who couldn't be here that we usually have working on the thing. So, I mean, like, to the point where we put a green screen up in my lounge. We moved all the sofas, and me and the camera guy that's staying with me set up the whole green screen. And then you have to film the thing afterwards as well. But it's like, it's just crazy for how many different things you have to get involved in now to stay relevant. And that's literally all it is. And it's like, for the majority of the stuff, you know, it's not really doing anything, but it's doing loads at the same time, if that makes sense. So it's a really difficult thing to get used to. And also, I think that things have become very jovial. So we have to, you know, we've all had to learn to like make fun of ourselves. You can't be Mr. Serious pop star person anymore. People aren't really attracted to that. People like to see that fun side of you and your humor and your personality come through on these things. And it's crazy. I mean, you know, I thought about when I joined TikTok the other week, like, and I was trying to think, I need to film something funny. There's a pressure to film something fun. But then if you're not having fun filming it, you're not going to film a good video. And also it's like, I didn't want to live my life every day thinking, oh, I've got to film a video, otherwise no one's going to care. Or, you know what I mean? It's just like weird. I was like, I spent an hour trying to think of stuff, and I was like, I don't want to live my life like this. Like, I enjoy them. I like to go on TikTok and get lost in a little TikTok rabbit hole for a little while. We all do. But I just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm that way inclined mentally.
Have you learned any of the TikTok dances?
I haven't learned any TikTok dances. I've watched a few. I saw Justin Bieber do quite a lot, but I mean, you know, even for him, you can see him at the way his head's working with the posting, and he'll keep reposting the same dance from different angles. Like, we're all in this weird, it was like when Instagram stories first came around. It was like the race to the left, and everyone was trying to post a story every 10 seconds so that they were furthest left. I feel like whenever one of these new platforms comes out, everyone starts jumping on and trying to do something. Oh, I want to make a trend, or I want to make this, or, you know, I just think you have to take them for what they are, and they are entertainment. They're supposed to be fun and light. And if you're not having fun and it's forced, it's probably not going to be very good.
It's true. I completely agree with you. I mean, I guess one of the questions I'd have for you is, like, with all of these platforms, with this sort of this need to share more and to share a comedic side, a vulnerable side, a human side, where do you draw that line of, like, when do you stop sharing, or how much of it is sort of constructed sharing, controlled sharing, and how much of it is authentic sharing?
I think it's difficult because, you know, I'm very prone to enjoy a moment rather than to take my camera out and film it. Like, if there's a sunset, I've always been one of them people that, you know, when you take a picture of a sunset and then you never look at it ever again, I'm like, why do I bother taking pictures? I might as well just enjoy the moment. But I suppose, you know, we live in a day and age now where the camera phone is people's first thought for things. And I'm just not one of those people. So stuff for me, like humor and stuff, will happen off the cuff, and then it'll be funny, but we didn't film it. And then it's like, oh, should we recreate it? But you don't want to recreate it. Like, it just feels stupid, and it always feels forced in that sense. So, I mean, for me, I definitely struggle with sharing moments. And I think you have those people out there who are literally willing to do anything as well, by the way. They're willing to do anything. And that's the problem you have is for as many people who are willing to push things out, like, there's a trend for people shaving their eyebrows off at the moment. Like, I'm not about to start shaving my eyebrows off just so people will, like, care a little bit more. It just doesn't, that sort of stuff doesn't really register with me. You know, and you have like Jake and Logan Paul, who obviously do a lot of crazy things to get noticed. And it's just, you know, where do you draw the line?
No, it's true. And then also thinking about this idea of sort of trying to carve out privacy, and this idea of, like, what is public and what is private, being a public persona, but also, you know, that classic fight of, like, trying to preserve a level of a private life. And I feel like these platforms often make it more and more difficult to carve that out, because people expect more and more to be shared. They feel that they have an ownership of every aspect of people's life. So yeah, I feel like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, from the start of this lockdown, it was like the first James Corden TV performance was filmed in the lounge, and we went through my whole house. So it was like, I mean, I can remember from back in the day when I had a newspaper send out the photos in the paper of my house. And I was like, I don't like the fact that people know where I sleep, because it's a security problem for you. So, you know, I had a big complaint about that. And then now it's like we've moved fast forward 5 or 6 years, and the world's completely changed again to where, you know, nothing's really private or an intimate moment. And then that's, I don't know, it's strange. I think it's really difficult to be, as One Direction, I feel like we were in an era where it was just before, on the rise of Twitter. And I think Twitter helped us a lot. I think Twitter, you know, really helped spread the word around the world for us, rather than it just being something that was a UK based, because X Factor had never seen anything like that before. And I think it was to do with the way we trended on Twitter that actually made us famous. But now, you know, being on the cusp of that internet stardom almost, we didn't really care as much about how many followers we had or anything then, whereas now it's become like a currency, quite literally. So I just struggle to take those things serious sometimes, and realize that it is part of the job, because it just feels so foreign. Like, when we had apps and when we were kids, there was no way of getting like MSN famous, or, you know, whereas these kids these days are all dealing with that pressure of, like, you know, you see kids posting videos being like, oh, no one believes I'm going to get TikTok famous if this gets 150,000 likes. And I'm like, I just can't imagine that being, but then again, You know, they have like the job thing the kids went at school, and everybody says they want to become a TikToker or an Instagrammer. You know, they want to be one of those people. It's crazy, but we never had that.
No, it's so true. I mean, I feel like we're the last people on the cusp of remembering what it was like before Twitter, before Instagram, before.
Exactly, yeah.
And really
I mean, I
being
wanted to
able
be a fireman when I was a kid. I wasn't thinking about, you know, posting videos myself on the internet. I was either going to be a pop star or a fireman. But they don't think like that anymore. It's so insane that that's where we are now. But you know, in other ways, looking at this quarantine thing, would we have all have been as connected without the technology that we have? I don't believe so. You know, I think it's quite funny that technology we all saw as something that was pushing us apart at a certain point, and then now it seems that the technology is actually bringing us closer together than anything else could have in a time like this. You know, having the ability to FaceTime your mom or whatever it is, that connectivity has actually really saved us at this time.
No, it's so true. I mean, you said something about that sort of struck a chord to me about people chase the currency of sort of likes and follows, and that validation, and that kids are, that's something that they think about when they're creating content. How much of that are you thinking about when you create, whether it be music, whether it be social media content, whether it be video content? What is that sort of balance for you? Because I mean, I think it would be naive to say that it's not a factor, because it is a currency, but how much of it really dictates that creative process for you?
Good question. I think for me, I don't often pay attention to how many likes or different things that something gets. You know, I think as a pop star, you have like an average amount that you usually get per post. And like, we have to have like meetings and different things now where people will go through posts and tell you why this worked, which for me is still, it seems insane. Like, it seems insane, but you have this persona you have to keep up online. And I think, yeah, definitely when posting certain things, you are gauging whether or not it's going to get a reaction. Otherwise, there's no point in posting it. And I think that's always been the problem for me more than anything, is that, you know, you're hoping for a big reaction on stuff, which then limits the amount you post, because you're like, oh, there's no point posting that, or there's no point posting this. But often the people who do best in these scenarios are people who didn't mean for that to happen. You know, somebody makes a little challenge somewhere, and then they're like the ice bucket challenge. Like, someone thought, I'll just do this, it'll be fun for us to film, and then that was it. But because they were having fun, everyone was like, oh yeah, we'll get involved and do that. So it's like, if you think about it too much, it will just completely overtake you. And for a long time, I didn't post a lot. I got off of Twitter and whatever else, just because the backlash and the fact that you're always going to annoy somebody with the post, I was just like, I can't deal with it. Like, I might as well just keep it to myself, and then, you know, there's no disappointment in the fact.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's like, you can't please everybody. And I feel like, for me, at least as a photographer, like, I'm not going to deny there aren't times where I've been like, oh, I hope people like this, or you want to be validated as an artist. I think that's part of the condition of being an artist, is you crave a certain level of validation, and attention. In an ideal world, you know, we'd all say, oh, that doesn't matter. But of course, I think it still matters. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's the point. When it's work, it's slightly different. You can take that some people won't get it, but because everything's become so personal now, it almost seems like it's about you, if that makes sense. And you're trying to sell your personality to people. And it's like, if someone asked you a question, you know, what 5 things would you want someone to know about you? Everyone goes, oh, well, I'd like to be, you know what I mean? Then you're suddenly thinking of this list. That's what we're doing every day online, is trying to sell ourselves in that way. And it's a really difficult balance, because it is a balance. You know, you've got to have the right amount of humor, but the right amount of humility, and the right amount of this, and it's just so difficult to find that person. And then, you know, you see other people who become complete caricatures of themselves online as well. And it's like, they overdo where they're at almost. I mean, it's difficult. You don't really know what works or why it works. It's such an untested experiment, the internet, and letting, you know, the public decide. It's so crazy.
No, I agree. I mean, you just said, like, it can feel so personal, which I think is such an honest statement, because when you're putting yourself out there on these platforms, it's hard to separate that. It's like the work and you. It blends. It feels like when people don't like something, or people are very negative, it can feel like they're personally attacking you as a person. Because I know I've felt that way before. How do you
it genuinely scares me sometimes. It genuinely scares me about posting even so much as a selfie, because you just don't know. Like, I don't know what the recipe is. You know what I mean? And I'm not really like trying to impress anyone, but I'm just trying to stay around, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's difficult, but it's just like, because of the fact that you let it go and then it's just gone and people either take it or they leave it or whatever the scenario is. I don't know. I've always just struggled to get past. It's like jumping on stage every time you post, which scares me anyway. So it's like, you know.
Well, you've spoken pretty openly, I think, in previous interviews, in the research I was doing leading up to this, because obviously I've known you as a friend for quite some time, but I didn't know everything about your history. You've spoken pretty openly about dealing with depression, anxiety, just mental health stuff. Do you find, like, how does social media or the world we live in, not just social media, but these new platforms, this level of exposure, play into, how do you manage the anxiety and depression that could come on from that? How do you sort of say, like, I think you get the question without me asking it, but like,
yeah, I feel like with everybody today, it's almost like before all this started, like we'd have like the first day of school would be the time when you'd probably be at your most anxious. Or if you had, like, in the UK, obviously we wear uniforms, if it's own clothes day and you've got to wear your own clothes or whatever, and that's quite an anxious feeling because you're like, oh man, like I don't know what to wear, sort of scenario. Whereas that feels like what everyone's going through every single day online. Like, it's like the teen generation these days have so many more questions to answer than we had. And I know as a kid, sometimes I was quite stressed. So I can't imagine how these kids feel these days. And the only way I can relate to that is how I feel in this scenario now as well. But obviously being a bit older, you're a little bit wiser with it. So I don't know. I think it's a different kind of pressure that everybody has these days. And it's a worldwide pressure. And the fact that anybody can become a superstar overnight, or also the most embarrassing thing in the world, just like that. And the line is that thin. You know, so I can't imagine what it must be like for these kids growing up in that scenario. And for me, it's definitely raised a lot of questions about my mental health and having to deal with these things. I've been running a pilot for quite some time with someone for people in my position who struggle with fame and struggle with this position that they get themselves in, because you don't really realize the play button that you're pressing and there's no stop. So once you're in it, you're in it. And obviously, I mean, I started out from 14 to 16 was like my 2 start years. And it was just always seemed that, you know, the only answer people had for you was that you've got to have thick skin. But I don't think that that's really the point, because once you're here, you have to find out whether your skin's thick enough, and you have to learn. You know, for the longest time, if somebody wrote something about me in the press or an article, I'd rise back up and I'd say something to them and then bring it back up. But then I didn't realize that they were trying to like bait me out, because they knew I would do that. So then they would write like 3 more articles on whatever the scenario was I didn't want them to write about. You know, and it's like, you can only know that with years experience being in the scenario. If something comes out now, I just leave it and I let it die and go away, and then that's it. But yeah, I just think it's difficult when, like I say, the only answer people have for you is that you've got to have thick skin to do this.
Because that's not really a solution. That's almost saying like, well, you asked for this, or this is just part of it, so deal with it. Which I don't think is fair. So, I mean, is fame something you would say you struggle with a lot, or is that some? I mean, I feel like we've talked about this off camera before, so I want you to lead the conversation, because I don't want.
Of course. No, I feel like it's almost. I feel like with me, it goes through different periods of like severe highs with different things, and then a lot of questions about stuff. I mean, I've been going at this now for 10 years, which just seems insane. I mean, I'm only 26 as well, which is quite a long time to do anything. And to be in this like pressure cooker for that long, I think is quite difficult. But I'd say I've learned to deal with it better now. You know, I think age and time is a wonderful thing. And I also think, you know, we were very buffered as teens because we had each other in the band. Whereas like when I look at someone like Justin Bieber, I just think no wonder he went completely mental at a certain point, because there's no one in the world who knew what it was like to be Justin Bieber except for Justin Bieber. He had no one to share it with. You know, we had each other to share it with and to remember off of each other and be reminded by each other as well, how to behave, how to act. You shouldn't do that. Why are you doing that? And some of it was quite toxic, I would say, at some points. But for the most part, I think it definitely helped us growing up in that team building exercise rather than it just being like let off and then you're on your own, like the most famous person in the world. Like they must have been pretty crazy for him.
I absolutely agree. I mean, so I guess my question would be then, having that sort of support structure during those teen years, because you had each other, like you said, you had 4 other bandmates. You had Louis, Niall, Harry, Zayn, and yourself, all going through the same thing, where Justin was probably going through it all by himself, quite, which is different. But you all are dealing with similar pressures, but at least you could bounce that off of each other. When that sort of stopped, did that feel like a harder sort of loss, or to then have to deal with it all by yourself than it did, leading up into that?
I think it felt more like an identity crisis after that, because that was like your crutch almost, being part of the band, and the band was it got to a point where it was a little bit invincible. And then as soon as that kind of got let go, I mean, I had severe questions about whether or not I wanted to be a solo artist. And my thing was, if the right song comes along, then I will. And obviously Strip That Down came along and I couldn't really say no. But yeah, it's a bit crazy. I mean, especially being released on such a pedestal as well, you kind of don't want to undo your legacy for what you've already set for yourself. Because I mean, we achieved so much so quick, and it was actually really funny. I was playing poker the other day for a charity against Bryan Cranston and Aaron Paul, is it? Yeah, Aaron Paul. And there was a couple of other big Hollywood celebrities on this one table, and me, which was the most random thing ever. And they were like, "Oh, I've got questions I like to ask people at a poker table. What was your first job?" And everyone was like, "Oh, I was a paper boy, or I was this, or I was that." And I was like, "Oh, my first job was One Direction." And then Bryan Cranston was like, "Well, I mean, you can't really go anywhere from there. You've set yourself a hard task and whatever else." And I thought it was really funny, but it's so true. One Direction was such a massive thing, and I feel like we've all just been existing since One Direction. And I mean, in a sense, I think the hype of the comeback is kind of the thing that's kept us sort of bubbling along. But for sure, at the start, I think it was a massive identity crisis. You were really part of this unit, and then you knew how you fit in the unit. You knew the part that you played, and as soon as that was gone, you couldn't play the same role and carry on that way because the other units weren't there to put it all together, if that makes sense. So you really had to try and discover who you were, but in the public eye, that was stressful, I would say.
And how was that process for you? Obviously, besides it being stressful, but that actual process of figuring out who you were, how did you go about doing that? Was part of who
really
you
badly.
became? Sorry, what?
I said really badly.
Oh, stop! Not at all. I disagree with that. But I think you are very much different now than you were then, just knowing you. And I think you've grown into who you are now in a really amazing way. But was part of this identity something that had been brewing during your time at One Direction? I feel like, you hear and Zayn do interviews, and he's been very clear about sort of feeling different, from how he was projected in One Direction, or his identity within One Direction, and the identity that he has become now. Was that the same case for you, or is it more a discovery process? You had no idea who you were when you left?
Oh, no, I think it was a complete discovery process because, I mean, if you look at as simple as clothes, I know this sounds crazy, but we used to wear the same, we were told what to wear a little bit at the start because you had to fit in. It was like having 4 twin sisters, literally. And then it was like, you can't wear that, I'm wearing this and whatever else. So then we each got set our thing. And I think mine was plaid shirts or something. So then for 2 years of my life, I just wore plaid shirts because that was my thing. Yeah. And then when you come out of that, we all kind of went into this black phase where we just wore black t-shirts and black jeans, or white t-shirts and black jeans. And then when you come out of it and you don't really have to wear a black t-shirt or black jeans anymore, you're like, what the hell do I wear? So I went through a complete transition of clothes and different things. And that's only one element of your life, your appearance, what you look like. So for other things, for humor, you only experience the same humor for 5 years around the same people. And then when that changes and you meet other people, and we were coming more into the PC generation of things, but it was oh my God, so we can't say this anymore. We can't do that or whatever else. And then that was another thing. And then, I don't know, you just kind of, as you try and develop, you make several mistakes. I went through my whole Chains, gangster rap phase. And it's the same with music as well. At first it was all the chains and rap, and I felt like it was a little bit of escape the boy band scenario for me. It was the quickest way away from something without going too far. I don't know. It just made sense in my head.
The Miley Cyrus effect, the Disney to bangers.
Exactly. And I feel like there's a little bit of you that wants to like escape the most part of it at the same time and like identify yourself differently. And then I kind of pushed that to as many limits as it could go to. And then it's just, I don't know, ever since then, it's just, as you get older, I think you realize time's a wonderful thing. And instead of trying to be on a race to be a certain someone, because all of your role models and heroes are already so far ahead of you because they're already there, but they didn't start there. And it was actually, for me, when I got into acting and doing auditions and things more recently, I started looking at like actors that I love, and Brad Pitt's one of my favorite people. You know, I think he's transitioned over time into this most amazing person who has his own identity and whatever else. And I was thinking, how did he do it? So I watched an interview of him at 26, and it was, you have to watch it. You just like, he barely answers a question in the interview, and you can't believe it's the Brad Pitt that you saw now. And it kind of gave me
a lot 30 years of media training in between.
Exactly. And also 30 years in the thing of doing it. Whereas, you know, this was when he did his first role. I mean, I'd already had my first role being in One Direction pretty much. So I was like, wow, like I'm even further on than he was at my age. Like, I just don't need to worry so much and have trust in the process of whatever life is. I know this all sounds a bit like around about the houses, but I just think if you take a back seat and slowly and steadily move into things, whereas when you're a kid, you're in a rush for everything. You're like, I want it now. I want to be this guy. You know, when I did my Hugo thing, it was all about muscles and training. And I was looking at Mark Wahlberg, like Mark Wahlberg's freaking Mark Wahlberg. And it's taken him years and years to be Mark Wahlberg, you know, and it's just where you set your sights with the people that are your role models, I guess, that kind of makes you have this little thing that it's all got to come now. And that's very much what I think pop stardom is like, because you need it right now because you're already in it. You know, you're not waiting for the come up. We already had that bit. I'm in it now. So it's like everything that I need to happen has to happen so quick.
No, it's so true. Quick, and it's like constant. It's like there's the currency of relevancy and staying relevant, being something that it's like this constant need to feed the system, or you're out of the system. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easier for artists these days. I think if you look at like NSYNC, you know, after NSYNC broke up, it was like, unfortunately, no one really cared about what JC or the other boys were doing. So they didn't get the articles. Whereas now you are your own charge in that, you know, you can be the front page of so-and-so in the morning if you really want to be. You know, you just have to do the right thing on your channel. So it's like being able to be in charge of that stuff. I think it helps artists a lot more these days. But also, like I say, that all once again adds pressure, because it's like we are all in charge of our own press and media from our phones. You know, whereas they would have to go into work and then have someone lay out the schedule and then go and do the interviews, or they just wouldn't get them. So I suppose it's a different kind of pressure, really.
Yeah, and it's a different landscape, because I feel like in the same way that they would go in and it would be laid out for him, that content that they would create, if it was done well, would last, you know, months and months and months of entertaining people, where today it's like one day it's swipe up or swipe left and it's on to the next thing. So the lifespan of the stuff we put out also is so much shorter.
Like 30 seconds.
Yeah, not even one day. It's literally, it's like as quick as you can swipe. So
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we put a TikTok out yesterday, and I haven't really invested a hell of a lot of time in something, but I made this stupid song about cookies that went with my video, and I literally made this fun song in the house, and we were like, screw it, let's make a music video for it. And we did like one of those like Lonely Island type videos to this thing and put it out. And it's funny, like it's one of the pieces of content that I've cared about the most in a long time. So I was like, because I made the whole song and whatever. I don't know, just it was fun, and I was like, I want people to enjoy it the same way I did. But it's like, even when you post something like that, like I see some people who it just goes completely over their heads that this is just a fun thing for you to look at. It doesn't have to mean anything. It doesn't mean my next album's going to be about freaking cookies or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, I think we've lost some of the lightheartedness in having to take ourselves so seriously sometimes. It doesn't make any sense to me. But it's like, you can view the average time someone looked at a post. So it's that cutthroat. If they stayed on for 5 seconds or whatever, like the average time it should be like the full time. If it's not, then the post was bad. And it's like, you have that power now to look at things, but it's in seconds. It's not even the average time someone came on to look at it. It's down to the seconds.
Yeah, no, it's
Like 100
crazy.
meter sprint.
Yeah, no, 100%. So you touched on something that I was going to get to later in the interview, but I think I'll just ask now. You brought up the hype of reunion and keeping that sort of relevancy alive and that sort of that interest. Where does that stand? Because, I didn't even know this was a thing until I started researching for this interview a few days ago. And I was seeing a lot of conflicting articles and different statements about a One Direction reunion. So what is as of today, what can you say or not say about that? And what's the official word?
To be honest with you, I keep mixing up the word anniversary and reunion because our anniversary is coming up as a band. It's 10-year anniversary of the band, which is amazing, like huge achievement for all of us. And every so often I'll accidentally say reunion, and then I'm like, oh my God, like as if I just said it again. And then that conflicts another report and someone else has gone, Liam confirms a reunion. But I've been very clear on the fact that there's not a reunion at the moment, just because I know music schedules. And I know that Harry is only just putting a music video out for something today. So that's got 2 years in it before we even think about a reunion. And I also just don't think everybody's done yet. I think everyone's enjoying their time, making their own stuff, having that little bit of freedom. And One Direction's not really like a side career. You can have you'd have to be fully in it. So until we can all stop and commit to the band for whatever reason, then I think it'll come back. I think there will be a reunion at some point. I'm excited about it. I think it will be a lot of fun. It will be interesting to see if we still have the same essence that we had as kids.
Essence meaning like synergy on stage or camaraderie or what do you mean by essence?
I think a little bit of both. One Direction was such a free time, and I think people enjoyed the fact that it was just 5 lads on a stage having a good time. It didn't matter if we sang in tune or if someone fell over or whatever. That was what the show was about. It was chaotic. Whereas now we've all become these sort of more polished pop stars. I don't know if we still have the same carefreeness about us is the only thing I do worry about. But it was nice. We've all been talking a lot more recently. Everyone's been in touch. And it's the first time everyone's really spoke in the last 5 years, which is amazing. And it's just nice that everybody's grown into being nice people. There's none of them that I really hate. Do you know what I mean? I think everyone's grown into being nice young men, who have just kind of gone on a little bit further from where you left them.
No, I mean, you sort of just answered my next question. I was going to ask you, where do you stand with the other 4 members now? Who are you closest to? Do you speak to any of them regularly, or is it more like we've all gone through this together and we all share something, so we're in touch? But no, what's the different levels to it?
I think there's a little bit of that in it that, you can't, we each have a big respect for each other for the things that we've experienced. And also, I don't think we give each other credit enough for how much we helped each other through that scenario as well. Obviously, with some of them, I speak more to Louis and Niall than I do anybody else. I speak to Harry on occasion. And I just think that's because we don't really have very much in common as people. And there's nothing wrong between us and nothing false either. But, we just don't have as much in common as you'd like with the person. And then with Zayn, sadly, Zayn has completely fallen by the wayside, which is terrible. I feel for him sometimes, but at the same point, I think he kind of made his decision on that, and it's not something that you can go back on lightly. If I saw him in the street, would I say hello? 100%. It doesn't bother me intrusively. And I've already spoken about, obviously, his great news he's just had, having been through it myself. And yeah, it's just interesting. I just think it's a bit of a lonely scenario to be in, to not be able to speak to the other people that, helped you get to where you are, sort of thing.
If you were to guess, or maybe you already know, do you foresee that reunion in the future in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years time from now, including Zayn, or do you think that's over and done with?
I think it's over and done with for the time being. You can never fully discount it because, you had the Robbie Williams Take That scenario. And I remember going to watch that concert when I was in the band, and it was so interesting that they were a band. He left, had all the success that he had, and then they came back and he had his own section of the show, which I thought was interesting. It was Wembley Stadium, amazing. And Take That, they weren't down in the dumps. They just had some of the biggest hits the UK had ever seen, really. And yeah, I think it was I don't think you can ever fully discount it. I know for now it's not possible because it would take certain people to admit wrongs, let's say, in a scenario. And I don't see that happening because I don't think they've even realized it yet. So I think that's a little bit further down the line.
Here's a question actually that I just personally. Oh, what was that? We just heard a lot of.
I have a sound card, which is just really helping my life. After a certain point, the Zoom starts doubling itself, and I have no idea why, but it drives me insane on a daily basis. Shit. This has been the other part of this whole scenario, is learning all these different technologies. I mean, I've already got enough apps as it is.
Me too. I'm like, my phone has never had so many apps that during this pandemic.
No, it's crazy. I can't deal with it. It's too much.
Too much. Here's a question that actually I just have, and this wasn't a planned question. This is sparked from this conversation. You know, if a reunion happens in so many years, 3-4 years, how do you envision that creatively looking? Just because, like we talked about, everyone has such different formed identities now. Like Harry is his own thing. Like he has a look, he has a sound, he has, you know what Harry Styles is. You know what I'm saying? Like what, and you do too. And I think so does Niall. And everyone is distinctly grown into an amazing sort of adult version of themselves, which sort of, you know, which is the opposite of what a boy band is, where everyone's sort of in sync and the same and being told what to wear. And there's this synergy that matches. So how does that just like creatively, I know this is a really, like, I'm throwing this question out there. And
I honestly think at a certain point, I actually think that we picked up on that already as a group slightly, not knowing what was about to happen next. Because I can remember from the tour screens in the very last tour, there was the real thing of the introduction with a song that was like showing each of us on video doing different things. And I think it picked that apart ever so slightly. I'm only just realizing this myself, but I feel like if we came back together, it would be a celebration of what One Direction was, a celebration of what it is now, and also a celebration of each of the members in that way as well. I think it would be that the tour screens would be individuals shown on with, you know, Harry in a completely different aesthetic to what I was, for example. And I don't think that's something we could ever really shy away from or hide. I think, you know, everybody knows. It's just funny. I just think the band's name's so ironic in the end because it's completely gone opposite directions, which is the you know, maybe that's the point in the name. I have no idea. But yeah, I just think it would be more, I think it would fit back together quite seamlessly actually, but just for completely different reasons. I'm only realizing this myself now after you've asked the question, but it's quite...
You touched on something else, which, you know, I wanted to bring up because you mentioned obviously Zayn and his amazing news and becoming a father and something that you've gone through. And I'm curious what that experience has been like during this pandemic. How have you been able to navigate like just the logistics of like people have to stay indoors and people have to be safe and, you know, you are a father and all of those things. Like it must be, I mean, there's so many, this is a loaded question because there's so many other questions that sort of are under this umbrella, but I'm curious what this experience has been like.
Yeah, it's been difficult. I mean, unfortunately for me, he's not really at the age where he understands FaceTime properly. So we FaceTime and stuff, but it's more me checking in on them and making sure that they're okay and checking on what's going on. And then every so often he'll do something really cute. I mean, I had one FaceTime where he showed up and he was wearing like Wellington boots, a princess dress, a fireman's jacket, playing a ukulele on a trampoline. And I just thought that's something I'll never forget. Like so random when they're at that age where they just like stuff. So they just put everything on. And, you know, he said something quite sad the other day where he was like, oh, come on, Daddy, we need you now. And like those sort of moments are really difficult. Because it's been the longest I haven't seen him in his life. But, you know, we discussed this at the start. And for different reasons, me and Cheryl had chosen that I just would stay away for a little bit. You know, it's not unusual for me to be in and out of his life. And he's quite a chill child. Like, he doesn't really, like, worry about things too much. But, I mean, this time's been so crazy for kids of that age because not going nursery and not going here, you know, he got up the one morning halfway through and was like, let's go home, man. And she's like, what do you mean you are at home? But he just thought he wanted to go somewhere because he couldn't understand why he'd been in the same place for so long. And it's like, you can't explain it to them, you know. But he's really well looked after. It's not something I ever really worry about. It's just, it's, you know, it's difficult to take. You have to compartmentalize it in a certain way. But yeah, it's been difficult to be away from him for sure. He's, you know, growing so quickly. But I'm really excited to see him. I mean, it's going to be really great.
No, I know, and the reason I guess I asked that question because I know just on a personal level how important being a father is to you, and how good, an amazing a father you are, and I think it's something I love about you, because I don't think it's something people automatically know. You know what I mean? They know Liam Payne, the pop star, but I don't think that many people know how amazing a dad you are and how important it is to you. So, you know, it's just something I wanted to highlight because I love that about you.
Oh, thank you. No, I think, you know, that's on that personal and private thing for me. You know, we made a strong decision at the start of his life to keep him out of the public eye, and I suppose for me, in a sense, that's kind of kept fatherhood out of the public eye as well. And people can be very judgmental about things sometimes and whatever else, but it's just because they don't really know, so they're just expecting me to be a certain way. And obviously, I'm young. I understand people will think certain things the way I live my life or whatever.
You have,
but you know,
you have like a
sorry,
piece
what?
of hair like completely.
I know this little piece of Superman hair that keeps bouncing into frame.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I thought I'd
oh no, that's
tell.
okay. Yeah, I think it's difficult for people to understand. Obviously, you know, they expect a certain thing out of you as a pop star. And I think this is the same as any form of content or anything that you put out. But you know, that's something that I strictly keep for me. And it's nice to almost lead a double life in that sense, that I get to go and be a dad and have a family in that way. That's completely out of that zone. It's mine for my own, and not to anybody else except for, you know, Sharon and Bear. And that's a completely different scenario to be in and to handle. And it's nice because that feels like normal.
Yeah,
you know, there's no pressures on things. There's no worry about anything. And we've developed a really good friendship over the course of being co-parents, or whatever the word people use these days. But it's just like we have a good balance with everything, and it just fits perfectly. So it's good.
I want to shift focus and talk a little bit about your solo music, the future of your solo music, all of that sort of stuff, which I think, you know, I love. You know, I love your stuff. I'm a huge fan. Polaroid is a song that I have on repeat a lot. Number one, what is the future of, you know, you just put out a single, so that's exciting. Is that leading to another album, or are you going to do a series of singles, or what is sort of the Liam Payne plan as of today?
I mean, I think I enjoyed doing the singles bit a lot more. I don't know if I am an albums artist. I mean, when I look back on my album, I don't really know if I had a story to tell. I was just trying to put something together. And I don't think that's the point in an album, really. I think, you know, there's a lot of artists out there, you know, like Harry and like Lewis Capaldi and like Ed Sheeran, who have a real story to tell in what they're saying. Whereas for me, I just like the vibe. I like the vibe of putting out a song and the, you know, that sort of feeling of it. So it kind of lends more towards this era as well, with how fast people want content. Like I just like putting these singles out, going out and doing shows. And like I say, I'm no underestimation that One Direction's coming back around at some point. So for me, I'm just going to keep going the way I'm going, and just hope to put out some cool new vibes for everyone and just see what happens. And also, I've been quite fortunate to be able to do a bunch of different stuff. Like I got to design clothes and whatever else. So I don't really know what the world's going to bring next for me. And I've kind of been playing that game with life every single year, just seeing what comes in next. So there's loads of different things that I am working on in a smaller way at the moment to see if they develop into anything that I want to show the world. But it's quite fun just being able to do whatever you want, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's quite a fun experience. I enjoy it.
No, and I mean, you're amazing. It's amazing that you're in a position where you can do that too now, so you should pursue what you love doing, and you should try things to figure out what you want to do, because what was the point of working so hard for 10 years straight if you can't do that now? You know what I mean?
No, exactly. Yeah, it's a very, very lucky position to be in, because I don't think anybody really expects anything of us in One Direction. We've all completely done the unexpected, which people thought couldn't happen anyway. They thought we still wouldn't be here, as you know, they thought one might rise up and then do their thing. Whereas now, you know, you have that freedom to become whatever you want. And that's, you know, in doing these video diaries that I've been doing every so often and whatever else, you can just have a little bit of fun with things. going in and designing clothes. That was something I never thought I'd get to do. So yeah, there's loads of little projects. And I think I'm so young that you can't really pigeonhole yourself into anything yet, because you just don't really know what might be your thing.
No, absolutely. You know, another thing I wanted to ask you, because we've spoken about this actually a lot, and I'm curious if your answer is different now post pandemic, because our conversations predated everything that's going on in the world. But what do you think, A, the future of touring is in general, but also the touring for you? Because I know this is something you were thinking a lot about pre-pandemic. Like, what does a Liam Payne tour look like in the future? What are your interests in touring, or how has that changed? How's it the same? I'm going to let you take the lead, because I don't want to say things that I know more than probably you want to say.
I think the most difficult part of this has been learning that, you know, we're not going to get to perform for probably a year. You know, it's going to be a long time before those gates open back up. Speaking to Alesso, speaking to other artists, I think everyone's genuinely quite worried about the fact that we can't. I mean, there's a lot of different ways we can do things online, but it was amazing for me to perform for the Lady Gaga event, for example, because in my head, I get a checklist in the morning of stuff that I have to do, and it was on the checklist. So I got ready, I set the camera up with my guy and performed at this table where I'm sat now, and it was so small, and it just didn't, you know, I enjoy performing the songs, but it was so, and then like to find out that it raised like $150 million or something stupid, I was like, well, that was a real big deal that we just did right there. I think it was only when someone told me about it the next day, you know, the show doesn't feel the same in your living room. It definitely doesn't. I mean, there's fun things we can do with the drone and whatever else that make it more interesting for the viewer. And I think that's the point for me, really. But I think there's going to be a lot more online performances. That's definitely going to be one of the futures in this business, because at the moment we are all stuck waiting for a time where we can perform. You know, whether a show will still be the same. I mean, it's almost like the way a promo schedule runs now compared to how it used to. You know, some of the promo things I don't think work. Like, I've never read a newspaper and then thought I'm going to go and buy a song. But we still do them, which doesn't make any sense to me, because if I'm somewhere and then I hear the song on some other channel or whatever, those things work now, whereas I don't think the old ways do. So it's all a matter of us just adjusting. And also, you know, we have a lot more compilation shows these days now as well, where multiple artists perform, which, you know, dips into the market for sure of how many people will come and watch the show. So I think it's completely changed the landscape for artists. And yeah, I mean, it's been fun for me to go around and do these corporate shows and different things that I've done so far. And I've got the chance to perform at some of the most amazing places. I mean, I was meant to go to Russia this year as well, which I've never been. Would have been quite exciting. But I definitely want to do a tour again. I just felt like I spent so much of my life on tour at one point that I don't know if I could still go back there now, if that makes sense. No, it was like 5 years of constant touring.
I agree. And I also think, I mean, I think we talked about this a little bit, but like the landscape of how artists make money and the money tours generate now, depending on what level of artist you are and how big the tour is. I mean, sometimes it's like people lose money on tour, break even on tour, or
a lot more artists than you'd think. Like, there's so many artists who lose money going out touring. And I mean, the gamble and the bet is that people will come and see you again. You know, when you're selling a tour, the reason why One Direction was so great is because it was about making memories for people. That's what the whole thing of the tour, whether it be how much money we'd spent on fireworks for that time. Like, that's something you'll never forget. Like, remember how good the fireworks were, or, you know, whatever, all these different elements, or when we built the stage that would look like all around the world or whatever. You know, those were real moments for people. And that's the essence you're trying to capture. It's a really difficult thing to grasp, because people are so well adjusted to seeing shows now that they need more. They need more from the show. You know, you got to fly. It's like when Pink did what she did. Like, no one will ever recreate that show. Pink was amazing for what she did. It was acrobatics. It was Cirque du Soleil in pop, which was crazy. So it's just difficult to figure out how you're going to create that moment. And for me, I don't think I have a book that I want yet to tour. I think that's what's really holding me back more than anything, because I need those songs that are really going to grasp the memory.
No, yeah. I think you have some of them. I think
it's fast on its way of collecting those songs, but I just don't think I have quite finished the songbook for what I would like to tour yet. I want to get out there and have this list of songs that just is, you know, hit after hit.
I think what you're touching on something interesting is because when you're a new artist and you're building and you're collecting those songs, the way you tour is you start, you know, a small venue, then you move to larger venue, and hopefully you end up in arenas and then stadiums. But you're coming off the success of One Direction where you were doing stadiums. So it's quite different. There's this expectation in this audience that wants to fill quite a large space. But then, you know, you're sort of at the beginning again to compiling that list of your own material. So
that's it. I mean, you are a new artist. I'm still learning so much about myself as an artist and different things that I want to, you know, and I'm not even sure I figured it out yet, really. And it's a real game of chance because like I say, I can't wait to become Liam Payne because I'm already there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
You know, you're already at that level. It's got to happen right this instant. And that's a hell of a lot of pressure. And for the longest time, I just couldn't write a song. I was like, I don't know what the hell I want to write about. I haven't got a clue. I mean, this period of quarantine's been the best thing for me because it's forced me to write by myself. Like I haven't had help from anyone. So it's the first time I've actually written anything that was just me, which has been really, really fun to do. And just going back to having fun with music rather than the pressure of the label going, oh, you need to write with this person or you need to do that. So I definitely think the one thing that's going to be great out of this is there's going to be so much more content. Like, I don't know about if you feel the same, but I feel like I've seen everything on Netflix. So we're coming.
I have seen everything. I'm out of things to watch. I'm dying for them to drop something.
Oh, this is it. But it's, you know, it's about to come into a place where people have been locked inside for so long that they're going to be feeling so creative. So I think we're going to see some great art out of this. You know.
Have you seen Normal People yet?
No, I haven't seen Normal People. Is it good?
It's amazing. It's one of the best things I've seen. It's so good, and it's funny. It's whenever I watch it, and that said the same thing. We feel like we're listening to Niall speaking, because the thick Irish accent. But it's amazing. You and Maya would love that. You need to watch it. It's short. It's not a big commitment. It's like 30-minute episodes, and there's 12 of them. You could do it in a night or in 2 days.
Oh, right.
Like, yeah, it's definitely worth watching. I just have a few fun questions for you. One that we've been asking a lot of people, and a personal one. Who's the coolest phone number you have in your phone book? Coolest in the sense that, like, when you were a kid, you would never believe you would have had that number, or that person would, even today, you'd say, oh, I'm starstruck that I have that person's number in my phone book.
Coolest person that I have in my phone book? What a funny question. Do you know what?
But it's one that I'm just like, I don't know. A fan asked it the other day when we were doing a live interview, and it was like, you know, that's such a fun question. I actually want to ask everyone that.
Who's the coolest person in my phone book? That's so interesting. I'm just looking around for names now. It's so funny going through your contact list. I mean, do you know what, to be honest with you, I haven't really got a mass amount of like celebrity friends. I'm trying to think. This is a really difficult question.
I'll tell you, Machine Gun Kelly said Marilyn Manson, which I thought was a cool one.
Marilyn Manson is a pretty cool one to have in your phone book. I mean, Mark Wahlberg's number, which is quite cool. I never thought I'd have Mark Wahlberg's number, but that is pretty random. It was so
also
funny.
Pretty iconic.
Oh, I mean, he's amazing as a person. I got fortunate enough to go to his house. He was trying to help me out with some audition stuff and different things for acting. We went training at his gym and whatever else, but to go to someone's house, like on like our second like friend meet was like the craziest thing. And I mean, he's so cool. He has the most amazing house, by the way, like 90210. It's unbelievable. And it's just like, he has so much time in his day. I don't understand how. Like, he is a real hustler. Like, he's a go-getter. Like, you can see how he has gotten to himself to where he is because he's willing to go out and put the footwork in. And I think, you know, I was actually speaking to Louis about this recently. As One Direction, we didn't really have to do any footwork to get anywhere because people all would want to work with us. Whereas that's been a different transition, really, is learning how to enterprise on scenarios rather than like taking the back seat, which is difficult, man. I mean, it's hard to keep somebody interested in a project or something that you have going on for a long time, and to build a relationship with somebody in that way as well. Because I make friends with people quite easily when I'm out somewhere, but I struggle to keep hold of someone. I'll always bump into them again and say hi. You know, I'm not like on people's cases.
Well, I think
just find that a little bit hard.
I think that's something people have a real false false perception of our industry. They think everyone is just friends with everyone because they see people in pictures together and they see people, you know, at these big events. But really, it can be almost quite daunting or awkward because you don't really know all these people so well a lot of the times. So I think a lot of those pictures where you see, oh, this person's with that person, it's quite misleading. That might be the first time they've ever met, or they might have met in passing a couple times, but it's not somebody that you speak to regularly. And I think people don't really know that. I think they think everyone's just friends.
I think you have like different groups of friends. Like some groups of friends you'll have that you like when I got involved in the fashion world and hanging out with Edward and whatever else, there's a group of people that we all hang out together, and I will always see those people together. So it's not like you ever keep in touch with any one person at a certain point. It's quite crazy. I mean, Edward's been a real great person to keep in touch with and become one of my only like real friends that I learn a lot off of in different scenarios. Like he made me go to Africa one time by myself because he thought that I needed it. Do you know what I mean? It's like things like that. Like I don't really have many friends in that scenario. He was like, you need to come to Africa. And then I kind of said yes when I was really drunk, and then I got up the next morning and I was like, oh my God, I've got to go to Africa by myself. And I was like, I'd never flown anywhere by myself. And he'd phoned my manager secretly and goes, make him come because he needs to. And then like I had to like figure out how to get there and whatever. But he's great fun in that way. And he definitely upped my confidence levels in a lot of scenarios. So I remember the first time I met him, he was sat next to Anna Wintour. And I literally walked into the party and I was like, and Steve was like, oh, go and say hello to Edward. And I walked over and I was like, hello. And I saw it was Anna Wintour. And I literally said, hello, how are you? And left because I don't hover because I know I'm going to say something stupid. And I was bricking it. I was proper pooing my pants. And then he just like developed into this great friendship out of nowhere. And I was like, no, it's cool. Like I was always really nervous about people meeting me and whether or not I get along with them or whatever else. But it's like, you get to a certain point in life where you don't really care. You just have fun.
And he's such a sweet, loving person. Like he's somebody who really cares about his friends. Like, yeah, I really, every time I've met him, a couple times with you guys and sometimes, you know, with other friends, he's always been such a lovely, like genuine person. So I love that friendship for you.
He's such a wonderful human being. And it was so fun to like get invited to all like the different like really like glam things. But I actually don't feel like they're a very good place for me because I just get a little bit like a little kid again and I'm just like, whatever. Whereas like when we've been on holiday or different things in the past, that's the point where you really learn, you know, you have those moments where you learn things about each other and different stuff. And, you know, those are the moments I love the most, I guess.
I agree. I mean, I always find the best moments are those moments that happen after the party or outside the party.
Yeah, exactly.
Because at those parties, it's just like, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all cameras. And,
everyone's on. Everybody's on. Everyone's at work.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's a really weird scenario. And like, I think it's one of the most daunting things ever walking into like a Vogue party by yourself because you just don't know what the hell you're walking into. You know, who's going to be there? You know, it's pretty crazy. And that was something for me to get used to as well, was going places by myself for the longest time because I always had the other boys with me. So I'd always have someone to bounce off of if something got awkward. Whereas there's a real tactic to like when it gets awkward to be able to fish your way through that. But it only comes with time. But it's gotten a lot easier, I think.
What would you say? This is another question that I just personally want to know. What has been your biggest like, wow, like I'm famous moment, or the coolest moment that has happened because of the fame and the wealth, and like what has just been like, I have arrived. This is insane. I never would have imagined this as a kid. Like, what has been the penultimate moment for you?
Well, I mean, after the band like went on hiatus. I remember being stood in the middle of Wembley Stadium and there was 91,000 people or something watching us. And I'd even bought like a specific trail I wanted to wear for the moment and whatever else and a pair of trainers that I had. And I remember just feeling like, wow, I might never get to do this ever again. Like this is the best moment ever. And then it was like 2 years afterwards, I think it was. I did this show in Dubai. And I went over and like, I went to the sound check and then realized it was like this park. And I was like, oh my God, you booked a park. Like, what the hell? I haven't been to Dubai in like 3 years. I don't even know if anyone's going to show up. And like, I genuinely didn't eat my lunch because I thought I'm going to owe the promoter so much money and whatever else and all this. I was stressing the F out. And I got to the show and I'm literally like so nervous about it. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And I could hear people chanting my name from behind the stage. And I was like, oh, there's a few people here. This is good. This is okay. I thought there might be like a few thousand people here, like up to like 15,000. And I got out and did the show, and there was a sea of people. Like the royal family were there, whatever else. And I was like, this is amazing. Finished the show off, and it was my show. I was the headliner. I was the only artist on. And I got off the stage, and someone's like, you've broken a record. I was like, what do you mean? And there was 110,000 people in the park.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow, like for me on that stage, I thought I'm never going to get to do this ever again. It's never going to happen. And then to do it by yourself and more, I was like, this is the craziest moment of my life. Like I genuinely finished and sat in the same chair for maybe 3 hours, like coming down off the experience, because it was just so wild. They hadn't even built the sound system for the size venue that it was enough for how many people turned up, because they all absorbed the sound. So it was just, that was a real crazy, crazy moment in time. Towards the end of One Direction, what I realized was that we didn't get to go to the parties a lot of the time. We'd often be on a plane or be on whatever else straight away. So we'd win like 3 awards and then never celebrate it. So I started drinking at the award show really early on, and like I was like wasted drunk by the time the award show finished a lot of the time. I mean, there was one before where I got the podium went down on me, and I was supposed to speak, which is funny when I look back on it now. But it was difficult. It was hard to register moments in One Direction. I can't remember who I was speaking to about it the other day, but learning to appreciate and going and celebrating an event is important. When something good happens in life, it should be celebrated because you put a lot of work into that time. I think it was Alesso I was talking about. He's like, even if you just go for dinner and go, wait, well done us. We never did that in One Direction. So it was all just numbers on boards, and another thing had happened, which was sad, really.
No, yeah, for sure. It's like, and I think, again, like what we touched upon earlier, that's why so many things end up falling apart, because that pressure to never stop, and that work ethic, which is unachievable. It's not even a work ethic that's like you want to say, oh, here's the bar, this is what you should aim for, because it's too much. It's too much pressure to never stop and celebrate the achievements, and just like you said, be on a plane to the next thing. So I think with everything in life,
this kind of circles back around, really, because it's like, this epidemic has been one of the worst things to happen to the world in our lifetimes, for sure, for a very long time. And it's quite crazy that it's taken this natural pause for a lot of us to kind of step off of that working treadmill and be able to take in the world for what it is a little bit, not feel that anxiety, I think, in a way. And I mean, I've kind of half gone about that because I released a single halfway through, but to get this natural pause out of life, I think, for some people, because I just think we were all at a height of things where everything was too much. You know, you look at global warming, you look at all these different things, and the world's kind of just gone, hold on a minute. And I think it was important. So in a way, out of this horrible atrocity, there is a beautiful side to it that we've all learned can stay at home and it will be okay the next day. Do you know what I mean? Sort of thing. So I think that's been one thing for sure. And I also think one of the most beautiful things to come out of this scenario is the fact that we can all realize what we had taken for granted before. I mean, I can't believe in this country it's taken us to have an epidemic to start applauding our National Health Service. You know, these people genuinely fight disease and stuff every single day, and these horrible things. And, you know, they really are the heartbeat of the country. You know, it was only when I went down to the food bank to help out for the day, to go and meet these people, like they genuinely do this because they care about it. You know, they're volunteers, a lot of them, and just coming out and doing those things. And they keep the country alive. It's crazy what we take for granted in that scenario.
No, it's so true. And look, I think that's a beautiful end to this interview, and to remind people that A, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but B, to stop and think and not take for granted the things that are making society run, and that, or just even little things that we take for granted in our own life. So I think that's a beautiful statement. Liam, thank you so much. Wait, I'm going to stop the recording in a minute, but thank you so much for taking part in this. You know, I love you, and I love Maya, and I love, and this whole cover shoot, everything has been so fun. I can't wait for people to see it, which is coming out very soon.
I can't wait. It's been a lot of fun. I hope we shoot more, because that was one of the most fun experiences of my life. That was hilarious. I love seeing you in full boss mode. It's the best thing ever.
Oh my God. Hold on. Let me see how to stop cloud recording.